We've put together, there's a bill called House Bill 1479, which we're really concerned about. That's an education bill. I talked about that a little bit this morning. And that bill would affect education, and we're very concerned about that. What it does, it takes the schools in Indiana that are in the lowest two categories of performance, that's watch and probation, and if they're in that category for 5 years, the state of Indiana can come in and take over the public school. And they can fire the teachers, fire the principal, hire a new management team to come in and take it over. The school corporation would have to sell that school to them for $1 a year, and that school would become an independent corporation. And we're very concerned about that.
Why?
And there are 212 schools that are on that list. Well, we're concerned about it because, first of all, we don't think that the state should have that kind of authority. Second of all, we're in the process of changing the categories. Instead of going with the performance or probation and watch, we're going with a B, C, and D. And the difference is that we're looking at corporations that right now every corporation is evaluated the same, and so we expect all corporations to be at the same performance level. We all know that not all schools are the same, and we have schools in low income areas, and those students don't perform as well as students in the high income areas, and yet we're evaluating them same. So the new process that they're using is to take those schools in the low income area and set a baseline and then evaluate them based upon how much they improve next year, the following year, and so on. So we think that if we're going to look at schools and try to change the performance of those schools and improve their performance, that we should wait until this new system goes into effect. And so we think they're jumping the gun. And one reason we think they're doing that is because they want to take over control of a lot of our schools. And the
Who is they?
The state of it, well, it would be the State Department of Education.
Okay.
And when they put this together, it's very much like a charter school. And so we're afraid that it's going to take local control away, because there's also a appointed school board that would, and I think only 2 members have to be from the area, the rest of the other 2 can be from anywhere around the state. And so it's kind of like privatizing public education, and we're very concerned about that. So we've put together a couple hundred amendments on that bill since we've been here.
I was actually reading this House bill. I have the whole text of it right here. And what I was wondering is that actually there is a lot of overview of, there's a lot of evaluation of the schools before they get sold for the dollar amount that you mentioned. And the control, the review boards, will be, there are times when parents of at least like 50% of the students can weigh in. There's a whole procedure before it gets sold to a non-school corporation. So to me, I don't know, just from reading it, and I would like to hear what your take on that is, it sounds like there is quite a lot of hurdles to go through before it gets sold.
Well, I think there are optional hurdles, is the way I understand it, and that it can be done that way, or the State Board of Education has a lot of latitude in terms of taking over the schools. The thing that concerns us is that this is one of those bills that they put an amendment in to make it an emergency, so that when the governor signs it, it goes into effect. Most of our bills don't go into effect until July 1st, but this one, so they're pushing this whole thing. The other thing that bothers us is that most of the things in this bill are very similar to the charter school bill, and they're really pushing the charter schools. Now, I'm not opposed to charter schools. As a matter of fact, I think they have their place, but my idea of a charter school system is where you have a few charter schools. They're experimental schools, and you let them operate on their own to see what kind of new things they can come up with. But what we're doing in Indiana, what they're doing in Indiana, is pushing the charter school thing, and almost to the point where they want the charter schools to replace the public schools, and we're concerned about that. Actually, we're concerned about what's going to happen to public schools, because there are a number of bills coming down the pipe. The charter school bill, which will take students away from our public schools and the money away from our public schools, because the tuition follows the child. So if we have a student in a public school and he goes to charter school, about $5,000 or $6,000 will go to the charter school as opposed to the public school. We have also the vouchers, and there's been a voucher bill. It hadn't passed yet, but it's out there. It's 1003. And the voucher bill will allow anyone that wants to send their kid to a private school to send them to a private school, and the state will pay for it. But the money will come from the public schools, the tuition. And interestingly enough about that, when they talk about, well, we need to do this because of the need for the kids who are out there that are low income that needs to go to a charter school. Makes a lot of sense, right? But the threshold in terms of income is $80,000.
But it's for a family of four, correct? Family
of four, but $80,000. How many percentage of people in Indiana that's $80,000?
How many would you say?
I would say probably less than 15. Well, probably there's, I don't know, it would probably be about 60-70% would be in that category. And also originally it was $100,000, so they backed it off. So, and then the other one that we're concerned about is the virtual charter schools. And I'm not opposed to virtual charter schools.
What are they?
A virtual charter school would be where a student would stay at home and take the lessons on the internet, and the state would give them the money for it. But the problem with that is, again, it takes money from our public schools. So when you add up the students that will go to a charter school and then will go to a private school through vouchers and the virtual charter schools, you can imagine the number of students that will be coming from our public schools, leaving those schools in trouble. Now you add to that the fact that over the last 2 years we've taken $600 million away from our public schools, and that's resulted in teachers being laid off, programs being cut, and class size increasing. So when you add all this onto that, the public schools are really going to be in trouble if all this passes.
Now, I also was reading a new budget proposal for 2012 from Barack Obama, and I actually read something very similar to House Bill 1479.
That's right. Yeah, I don't agree with that. And I don't know where President Obama is on this. I know that he is his ideas are very similar to this.
They are,
and Superintendent Bennett, I think, got a lot of his ideas from that. But I think you have to look at the overall effect it's going to have on our public schools. I don't know if we got enough time for this, but
no, please.
But you know, everybody has their own idea about public education. I'm a former public education teacher. I taught at North Vigo High School for about 30 years before I retired. So I have some interest in this. But I think what we need to do is look at where our problems are. And if you can take a map of the state of Indiana and you can take an overlay and put where the low performing schools are and compare that with low income, that's where it is. And my idea is that if we're going to help those schools, we need to take a special look at those kids from the standpoint of trying to lower the number of students per class so that the teacher will be able to operate closer with those students. Now you have to realize that in the low income areas, and through no fault of those students or their parents, they just don't have enough money to do the things that you can do in a higher income area. And so a lot of times they don't do much in terms of parenting either because they're too busy working and for a whole lot of other reasons. And so the person that student's going to identify with that year is the teacher. And that teacher is going to have more influence over that student than anything else. But you can't do that if you have a class of 35. You can do it if you have a class of 15, but you can't do it if you have a class of 35.
So how do you get a class of 15?
Yeah, well, the problem is that we need to put more money in those schools. And we cannot compare that school with a school in a high income area that we've been doing for a long time.